I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and welcome to Surviving Bad, where we explore stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. With most of us stuck at home, we depend on our information, entertainment, health, and maybe even our mental health on the internet and digital experiences. It's as if we worship the screens we stare at for hours. And in those hours of screen time, we get every angle on the news imaginable. But we really need to know what the truth is. We really hope to relax with movies, social media, surfing, and video games, but in the end, it can seem mentally exhausting. More often than not, screen time leaves us more confused and disoriented than we were before. Today, we have with us Dr. Thomas Benzoni, emergency medical physician and assistant professor at Des Moines University, and Dr. Douglas Gentile of Iowa State University, one of the world's leading scientific experts on the positive and negative effects of media. We're talking about media and the truth, from coronavirus to video games. Welcome to the show. Gentlemen, welcome. Tom, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, Peter, as you said, I've been an ER doc. I've been doing this since about the mid-1980s. Trained in Des Moines and in Detroit area. I moved around a while. I've been back in the Iowa area since the mid-1990s. Still practicing and teaching part-time.
Douglas, and you?
And I'm a child psychologist. Yes, I know I look older. But I study media's influences on children and adolescents, and pretty much any medium, and both positive and negative effects.
Tom, as a doctor, you're close to the front lines of what's going on in the world, and probably have to deal with a lot of the information and misinformation that's out there. Has that landscape changed since people are practicing social distancing and essentially spending a lot more time on the media?
Someone's changed and some hasn't, Peter. It's been interesting. I found that people are beginning to be a little bit more serious about the media that they listen to. The difficulty is that maybe more serious about the media they're listening to, and they might be listening to hooey and getting very serious about listening to that as well. So there's a problem with discernment on what they are consuming in the media.
Now, is this coming back to be a problem when you are treating patients?
It's a problem when I'm treating patients, primarily if they're coming in with a preconceived notion of what's going to work for them, because after all, some lady who is a Playboy bunny advertises it on TV, and the government wouldn't let them put them on TV if it wasn't true.
Yeah, so there is a question there of what's truth and what's not.
And I have to undo that.
Douglas, you study these things, and you know, people not only use the media to discern what they want to think and how they think, if they also use it as a way to escape from the world. How does one differentiate between, where sort of the truth and the fiction is in media?
Well, the problem is the human brain is not good at that. We, as humans, are naive scientists that if you hear something 3 times from 3 different people, you tend to believe it's true. And that actually makes a lot of sense in terms of how do we figure out what we should believe, until you realize that what's on the media is often paid. It's often a carefully crafted strategy to put 3 different people on 3 different shows that all have the same talking points. And so it's you look at them and you don't realize they were all coached by the same company or the same government agency. You think that these are 3 independent people. And so it's very hard for us to know. Certainly just looking at someone's credentials is not always enough to tell us that. So you call me Dr. Gentile, but I should not give you medical advice. But the average viewer wouldn't know that. They hear those words and they think that therefore I know something about medicine, when in fact I don't know anything about medicine. And so even if my credentials were flashed on the screen, that doesn't give you very much information either. And that certainly doesn't tell you whether I've been paid to give you a particular message, or whether I have a contract with a certain company, or whether I have stock in a company. And so These are all sorts of problems that is hard for the average viewer to figure out. And not just the average viewer. I think even the really highly discerning ones, how are you going to find this information? How would you even know this? And so I think that this is a serious problem, and it's why we shouldn't only listen to one news station. I think if we can listen to multiple, especially if they have different political viewpoints or they come from different countries, getting your news both from the US and the BBC, maybe you'll start getting a better sense of how serious a problem really is.
So Tom, obviously, Dr. Gentile's paid homage to the fact that the label of doctor, from a point of view of medical advice, is more fitting for you. And yet you mentioned that you still have to undo damage done. How would people be able to discern for medical advice from the media? I mean, how can this become so confusing at times?
Dr. Gentile brings up a very good point that doctor can mean about anything. I mean, there are some online people who take 6-hour classes and award themselves doctorates. The airline industry knows perfectly well that if you list doctor on your ticket, your light's probably not going to go on when they ask if there's medical personnel on board. And that's because those of us who are physicians do not put doctor on our ticket. We just kind of hunker down and we just want the pilot to get us all there in the wheels down position, near enough on time and safely. That's good enough. So single soul on board. I think one of the things I'd like to emphasize that the doc was talking about that's very important is listening to different news sources. And probably the single most important thing that he said was listen to news sources that are different. If you just listen to news sources that replicate what you think you know, well, that's a reverb box. I mean, if you don't know what you know, well, you got a more serious problem we can deal with here. So listening to things that you don't know is actually much more useful. I mean, if I look out at the street and I think it's all smooth pavement and I don't look for potholes, and I don't want to look for potholes, I'm going to drive right into a flipping pothole, and that pothole doesn't care whether I noticed it or not.
That's a great point. Well, we're going to take a short break, and when we return, we'll continue the conversation as we talk about how you can manage all the messages bombarding you in the media. You don't want to miss this. See you after the break.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
I don't know how we would have survived without Mediacom. We have 5 kids, my wife and I, and we have Mediacom for all of our internet and all of our cable services. So I'm stuck in my house, but at the same time, I'm connected to people all over the world, and it's been fantastic.
Thanks to Mediacom, I've had reliable internet to continue to work business as usual, that I can continue to provide for myself and my family.
Right now, we all feel like the world is in a standstill. The internet has played a huge role in allowing us to stay connected to our jobs and the kids' schooling online and finding fun and creative ways to stay connected with the ones that we love. We couldn't do it without Mediacom.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and we're joined by Dr. Tom Benzoni and Dr. Douglas Gentile. And we're talking about the stress and actually dangers that can be caused by mixed messages in the media. Doug, in the break, you had an excellent point about the truth in advertising, so to speak. Let's hear what you have to say about that.
Well, you are the advertising executive, so you can tell me if you have a different viewpoint on this. But there used to be no direct consumer advertising of any medications. And that all changed in the late 90s. And I think the biggest problem is not that people hear about a particular drug and come in and they pester their doctor about it, thinking that that's the right one for them. I think there's an even deeper problem, which is when you watch these ads, what they generally end up telling you is that you should always feel great. And if you're not, you should take a pill. That's the basic underlying message across all of the different ads. And so that, I think, has got to be, causing physicians a much bigger problem than just the specifics of whether a given issue such as, drinking tonic water is going to cure your COVID-19.
Tom, and in your experience too, in the modern media, we've had a lot of people proclaiming medical benefits of pills. What are your thoughts?
Well, depends on what you mix your tonic water with. Yeah, in fact, I teach a class on this with some of our students on how to look at direct-to-consumer advertising. There's only 2 countries in the world that permit that, US and New Zealand is looking to clamp back down on it. One of the things we always teach people on direct-to-consumer advertising is look at the people that the advertisements are showing. Do they look like the people who have the disease? And generally they don't. They're usually upper class, they're usually very clean. I love, there's one for an arthritis drug, this name I don't remember because I don't prescribe it, but you got people dancing all over doing handstands. I'm thinking, well, they got arthritis. There's been some kind of a miracle drug here, because basically what Dr. Gentile is talking about is the creation of false expectations. I can't fulfill the expectations that advertising can instill.
It's deeper than advertising though. We recently had our political leaders, without naming anyone in particular, that claim, is it a chloroquine type of drug, is supposed to be beneficial? And there may be some great risks there from what we hear.
Yeah, one of the old anti-malarial drugs, it doesn't work for malaria anymore, but it is used for people with a particular kind of arthritis, and it becomes a separate topic. Well, actually, bring that topic to front and center for a minute. When we divert medications away from a place where they may help, those people are going to suffer for a known proven benefit. And then you divert them into a population who the medication can harm, which is the general public afflicted with COVID. It turns out this medication we've known for a long time can induce a fatal heart arrhythmia. And in fact, just today, a study of hydroxychloroquine was halted because people were dying of a cardiac disorder that is induced by the drug.
So having some level of discernment also maybe relates to where you get your information. And when it comes to drugs and treatments, we probably shouldn't be looking to television or television sort of doctors evangelizing things. We should be talking to primary care physicians.
Well, I really do trust my car mechanic when he talks about my car. But if he's going to start giving me advice on where to get my nails done or my hair, well, maybe that's where he is. Maybe that's where I went to get my hair cut. I don't think I'm going to.
I go to the same mechanic, apparently.
We probably do. It looks like it. Yes, we both should get a discount, that or they get a finder's fee.
Douglas, give us a little bit more about these expectations, because I'd like to evolve into looking at another aspect of it at the same time that we have what I call really a burden of stress on people, because it's hard. Even if you listen to a lot of different news channels, you're getting a lot of different messages. You don't know how to sort them. Then there's the other side of media, whether it's social media or game playing or watching videos, where we expect to gain some relief, some escape. But while we're hearing that when people do expect too much of that, it actually induces a rather different kind of reaction. It does the opposite of what people expect. Is there truth in that?
Well, there's a lot of questions. So I'll answer one before the break. Just thinking about the news, for example. A lot of people watch the news, and the news tends to be filled with a lot of stress-inducing information. And so we feel anxious as a result of watching it. But the news then tells you there's a solution for this anxiety. And the solution is to watch more, because knowledge is power. You need to be an informed consumer. And so then you watch more, which makes you more anxious. And it tells you the solution is watch more. And so there's an addiction spiral kind of built into it to keep us hooked, because the news is generally a profit-making venture in the United States. And so they want to keep your attention the same way that HBO wanted you to watch Game of Thrones.
Thank you very much. And we'll continue the conversation after the break. Come back to Surviving Bad. You don't want to miss this.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
I don't know how we would have survived without Mediacom. We have 5 kids, my wife and I, and we have Mediacom for all of our internet and all of our cable services. So I'm stuck in my house, but at the same time, I'm connected to people all over the world, and it's been fantastic.
Thanks to Mediacom, I've had reliable internet to continue to work business as usual, that I can continue to provide for myself and my family.
Right now, we all feel like the world is in a standstill. The internet has played a huge role in allowing us to stay connected to our jobs and the kids schooling online and finding fun and creative ways to stay connected with the ones that we love. We couldn't do it without Mediacom.
Welcome back. We're having a conversation about how complicated it can be to sort out the risks and benefits of media when, like it is now, media literally dominates many of our lives. Dr. Gentile, I have a concern I'd like to ask you about. With the dependence on media in terms of filling our lives with things to do and a methodology to get in contact with people and circumvent all of the social distancing issues, are there risks there of flat out addiction, of just the mechanics of doing so much media, creating problems that are going to be bigger than the benefits that we foresee now?
Well, the medium with which there's the greatest amount of research and consensus is video games. The World Health Organization just last year noted that gaming disorder is a bona fide medical and mental health disorder. There is less consensus around social media, and there's no consensus around other media such as just television. Now, I think it's important to note what is it we mean when we talk about addiction. And addiction doesn't mean do something a lot. A lot of people drink a lot and yet aren't addicted. Addiction means you're doing something either so much or in such a way that it's damaging multiple other areas of your life. So it has to not just damage one area of your life, it has to damage multiple areas: your social functioning, your academic functioning, your occupational functioning, your family functioning, your psychological and emotional functioning. When it's damaging all of these other areas of your life, that's when it would classify as an addiction. And it does look like for some people, video games can do that they get so hooked by them that they lose their jobs and they damage their relationships and things like that. There's some evidence that that can happen through social media as well. So it's not just spending time in front of the computer or in front of the television that matters. And particularly if you're spending all this time nowadays with the physical distancing in front of your computer, doing TV shows by Zoom rather than in the studio, for example, that's doing my job. That's helping my job. So it's not harming it. And so it's not just about the time in front of the screen. It's about, is it enhancing your life or is it harming other areas of your life? And we're not always really great judges of that, too. My teenage daughter has to stare at her telephone all day long, and she thinks that's helping her because she likes it. liking it isn't the same as actually helping your life. She wasn't able to hold a job down very well, and that's part of the problem. So I think we need to look beyond just what our feelings are, whether we feel like it's helping or harming us, and we have to ask the people around us.
Mhm. Tom, your thoughts?
I look at Dr. Gentile said, Doc, my kids are all out of the house. They do eventually go, okay? Don't worry, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not a train.
Please, oh please.
You do get there. The watching people, and I still am not used to these words, consume media. You don't consume it because it's still there. But watching people interact, for instance, with video games or with their phones, and I have this persistent mental image of them being sucked into it. From a three-dimensional world into a two-dimensional world. And I got to tell you, it amuses the hell out of me to watch people getting all upset over electrons and photons striking a screen. I'm an old guy, so I'm used to the cathode ray tube method. Photons striking a screen and people getting, positively tachycardic, upset and throwing things. And all you're doing is making little gold appearing photons turn over on a screen, and they're really not even turning over. It's all in your head. It kind of reminds me of Alice in Wonderland.
That's a good statement. It's all in your head. Doug, what can you shed light on in terms of media experiences, digital media, and things being all in your head?
Well, everything's in your head. There's nothing we are aware of, whether that's our internal experience, like our emotions, or our external experience, seeing you or eating, that isn't mediated by our heads. And so our heads are important in terms of recognizing that we aren't just seeing reality. We are constructing reality through our biases, through our expectations, through our past experiences, that whatever we learn shapes the next time we come into contact with something similar to it. And that can certainly keep us from seeing truth.
That's a great point. We're going to take one more break now. And after that break, we're going to invite Tom and Doug to share some final comments, some good advice, things that might help you negotiate this rather tricky landscape of digital media and the truth. What's real, what's not? Let's see what they have to say. You don't want to miss it. See you after the break.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Welcome back to Surviving Bad. I'm your host, Peter Komendowski, and we're tackling a major problem on our agenda today: news, fake news, media overuse. We know we can't fix or solve all the problems of the world, but our experts can offer you some advice that may help you. Let's see what they have to say. Douglas?
Well, I think many people use the media as a way of coping. I think that's very typical. But I challenge our viewers, which is ironic since they're getting this information by the media, but I challenge them to think of other approaches to doing it. There was a great study in Science magazine a few years ago where people were given a range of experiences, both positive and negative, and asked how much they liked them and whether they would pay to never have them again. And one of the experiences was getting a painful electric shock. And they hooked the people who said they hated the shock so much they would pay to never do it again. They hooked them right back up to the machine. And they said, okay, here's a button. If you push that button, you'll get another painful electric shock. Now, just sit here for 15 minutes while we wait and set up the next part of the study. People sat there shocking themselves. One guy, like 190 times in the 15 minutes, even though these were the people who hated the shock. They would rather have real pain than the existential pain of being alone with their own thoughts. And I think that is an interesting thing with all of the onslaught of information that we have. We've gotten to where we don't even like just waiting in line. That's not okay. We have to distract ourselves. And I think it might be worth trying to find ways other than a screen to relax, to cope, take a walk, play a board game. There are lots of other things that will make you feel a lot better than just consuming more media.
Well, those are great points. Tom, how'd you follow up on that one?
It's pretty tough. The one thing I got to say, Doc, from listening to you, you know, if people were logical, I'd have to find honest work. I think, you know, for parents stuck at home with kids, number one, I have a daughter who's a teacher. I love some of the school memes about the kids that got kicked out of school and the teacher fired for drinking tequila on the job. I think the adaptability of people is tremendous. I hope someone is keeping all these really cool memes. There's a great way parents can teach their kids how to think and to make an adventure out of it. You know, you get out your screen and you say you play a game of solitaire. Okay, now get out an actual physical deck of cards, play a game of solitaire, and then show the kid how to cheat. Take the physical deck of cards, turn it over, look what the ones coming up are, and then take the computer and, oh, wait a minute, that didn't work. Yeah, I know you're teaching them to cheat. Kids will learn how to cheat anyway, but the under lesson that you're teaching them is what's on the screen isn't real. It's just fake.
Well, in that world and on that point, Doctor, do you think that there's a single bit of advice when people are dealing with media and the coronavirus today that would help them at that point of contact?
Very simple one, especially when dealing with medical. If it's easy, it's false.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Douglas. And thank you for joining us today. If you go to our website at www.ahealthyiowa.org and register for updates, you can get news of our upcoming shows. Keep your eye on Surviving Bad and on Mediacom MC22 for our next episode where we explore Iowa stories of survival, hope, and inspiration. Only on Mediacom MC22, your local programming leader.